Hey, welcome back to the World Cup coverage of 2022, July. Yes. This is game 3 of 31. This game is me versus a good friend of mine, Sid Murali. We've played hundreds of times um, online and in person, and we were faced against each other in round 3 of the World Cup. So it's going to be It's usually a very interesting game with Sid, and let's see how it went. So, this opening was very weird. There are lots of options that kind of like sucked, I guess. It's the best way to put it. So I'm gonna give it a little simulation, see what Quackle thinks, and I'll bring this details box up here. Um, while we're waiting, I can show you guys um, the score sheet if you want a little bit of spoilers, and I'll also show the final board. So here's a score sheet. All right, and the final board should be appearing right now. If you don't want to see it, avert your eyes, close your eyes. There it is. And I just realized I'm simulating with a rack that is not supposed to be there. I was actually looking on stream at an interesting position from a Nigel Richards game where it just seemed really on the surface that he made a really, not a really, but a bad play, just a play that doesn't make any sense. And we were talking about it, and it turns out his play was just extremely strong, of course, as we so often find out. Nigel's plays that look the weirdest are often the strongest. So here, there are possibilities of setting up my Y with GM, setting up the Y hook, which would then set up the C hook, which is pretty cool. MY, MYC. Not every day you get to do that. So I could do that with GM. I mean, the Y isn't really going anywhere, but at least I get a little bit of points for it. There's also just Sime to score well, but it keeps GEU. Sime at least is a very defensive play, and the GEU combination won't sting that much a lot of the time because you're not offering your opponent that much stuff. And then there's this guy, which seems to be the best balanced play. Leaves two constants, two vowels. Okay, CEEM. There's some merit to those. It also sets up the MY instead of setting up the MY with the Y on the double. It sets up the M with the M on the double. Um, and also just some possibilities of ME plays. And it's pretty defensive. It's kind of hard to do much after Guy. So that is what I chose. And of course, I played it vertically. And Sid opens with a bingo. Nice play of nombril. This is a word that I had once on my opening rack, I think, against a very strong player, Joey Malik, in a pretty important game in a large tournament that I was at, and I chickened out of the word because it's a French word. It means belly button, and I wasn't sure that if I was making it up in terms of it being valid in English Scrabble. But yeah, this is the only bingo. Um, and I think he played it here. Yeah, that would make the most sense. The difference being if you play nombril here, it creates this S hook, even an I hook, but mostly an S hook that's not necessarily going to go away. Whereas if you choose this placement, it's kind of harder to reopen the top of the board down the line. So that's definitely Sid's MO, and so we played it there. And I drew into this rack, AGI draw, and missed a word, grimace. And instead played reimage, which is clearly worse. Yeah, definitely a bad miss. Um, I probably should have. Yeah, I probably should have wrote written the alphagram of Grimace on my score sheet. That way I would have probably noticed that there was a word in there. Grimace is 4 more points, keeps an E, which is usually better than a C, and doesn't open as big of a spot, um, or as big of spots for Sid to come back with. Of course, my intentions were pure. I'm trying to play a lot of letters off, score a little bit, and try to draw an S for non-brills because that's the biggest spot on the board here. And whoever draws an S first is going to have somewhat of an advantage, especially if Sid draws one because he's already scored 68 to my 14. So Grimace is a bad miss. Let's say 12F. Grimace is a bad miss. Finding medium. So that's a bad way to play my second turn against Sid. It's very difficult to win games against Sid if you make mistakes like that. So Sid comes back easily with BAP for 29. I play Elect for a lot of points. Luckily he gave me this underlap, so now there are 2 S hooks on the board, and again it's still just a race to an S. I'm down 20 points, so I kind of really want to draw that S. So here, here Sid, what did he do? Oh yeah, Sid played Les here, which was the second time a slur appeared in this Word Cup tournament that I was playing in. So yeah, as I mentioned in the previous game, this was using the NWL 18 dictionary with none of the slurs removed from the dictionary. So words like les are still available. I think this word les was the word that in 2004, when the National Scrabble Championship was featured on ESPN, and Trey Wright won the event against David Gibson. I think this was the word that they had to edit out or like remove from the game, or I think they told Trey that he had to make another play because of the offensive nature of this word. So some Scrabble history there. And yeah, I did draw an S at this point. So Sid trying to block the, I guess, easier to score S hook of non-brill with Les, and maybe try and do the same with the other one eventually. So here I have Joe for 30 or Job for 22, and it was a weird choice. I could also play Jobs here if I really think Sid doesn't have an O, but one of my rules of thumb is your opponent always has an O. And I could also play Nut Job, which I didn't consider, which creates another S hook. So yeah, it seemed clear that Sid did not have an S when he played Les. Otherwise, he would have played Says in either spot for a ton of points. So I know that he doesn't have an S unless he's drawn it on a 3-tile draw, which is pretty unlikely. It's probably way under 10% that he's drawn an S. So I'm happy to leave Alex open at this point and try and draw a good play there. So the difference between Joe and Job is 8 points, but also a B. The B really, really sucks, with the V especially. So I didn't know how bad it sucked. I just knew that it sucked. And if I were to sacrifice 22 points, I felt like I was likely to make at least most of those points back, if not more of them, on my next plays. Because yeah, BOSTV, what am I gonna draw? I could draw an O and an I for Ovibos. What else could I draw? I could draw ER for voters, troves. There's really not that many draws that allow me to hit Alex very hard. And if I don't hit Alex next turn, it's not very likely that I'll get another chance, because I think Sid's plan after Les is to play off a lot of tiles, or do something that creates another threat. so that the Alex hook might become less important. So yeah, because this is how Sid plays. He plays very dynamically. He knows what's going on. He knows what the threats are. He knows when to create new threats, when not to. So it seemed like I was only going to get one or two chances to hit the S hook, but it looks like Joe for 30 um, is simming a little bit better. Nut job not doing so well. It's probably a bit better than what Quackle thinks because I know that Sid doesn't have an S. I think that for the same reason it's possible that Job is better than what Quackle thinks because I'm hitting the spot, the O column spot more often than Quackle thinks. So, anyways, I'm just gonna write this. Say questionable. It's tough for me. I used to just I think most of you know this. I used to just annotate the games and not record myself, but now that I record myself, I also have the audience that doesn't watch these recordings that just looks at the annotated games when I post them onto crosstables.com. And I sometimes forget to write down like the mistakes I'm making, so they don't really have any clue either that I made a mistake or why I didn't say that I made a mistake. So Sid exchanges 7, somewhat expected, and I draw into fronts with the V, and it's very clear to me that I have to play there for 38 points. And Sid is next with Suk, so I blocked Suk for 44. He plays it for 38, still pretty good. And here I think, yeah, here I played Java. So it's the best valued play, but there are also a lot of options. I could play D's, and I know you guys in the comments are gonna like this word. I could play D. Like I could score pretty well under here. And this is the start of like, do I play in this scoring spot or do I not? There's like a few turns in a row where I think that's possible. Um, so yeah, Java is my play. I'm setting up another S. Again, Sid Exchange 7, so this was, if he drew two S's, um, that's pretty bad for me. He's probably going to play something with Javas, but it's not the end of the world. And I also have the snubs hook. So I thought that playing Java, going for a bingo seemed really strong here, and I think it is. Um, but Sid does get Coaxer down, which is a good play. Uh, Eliminates one of the S hooks and scores well, and he's still ahead by 34. But I drew extremely well here. I draw W, D, and blank, and I see a bingo of wetters, and I'm not 100% sure of its validity, which is totally fine because I feel like the play I did make, wed, is at least as strong as playing wetters, because the snubs hook, unless it has the other S, it's really not going away. Um, and yeah, most of the time he doesn't have the other S in this position. And there's also this lane, this end column lane that exists as well. So getting a bingo down next turn and the turn after, or the turn after, seems pretty likely, even though Sid is probably going to try and eliminate those threats from the board. So yeah, luckily this chickening out thing doesn't seem to have cost me. So yeah, I was wondering if I should play the S off here, but I knew that if I did, Sid was probably not going to think I had the other S and probably just block the end column anyway, which means that I would have to um, draw into a less likely bingo somewhere else. So although it seems close here, I think that my choice of just playing wed is better. Um, but it's possible that putting the S on, maybe he would think I have the other S and he wouldn't block the end column, and then I get an end column bingo or something. But it's an interesting game of psychology. But yeah, Sid unfortunately has to exchange again. And now I'm actually ahead for the first time in the game. I'm up by 9 points. And once again, I draw very, very well. I had EDS blank, I draw VL, um, and I think Or is that what I drew? I don't know if I drew the N. I don't actually have my leave here. What did I write? Yeah, I didn't actually write anything here, so I actually don't know my seventh letter. It's possible I had another bingo. Um, but again, like I had this choice for 41, this extremely lucky pull that left me like very likely to bingo again next turn. Even though Sid has just exchanged 6 letters, which makes the unseen letters worse than usual, I was happy taking a 50-point lead here with a blank and one of the last two S's. So I played Veld, and I was feeling really, really good. Sid plays O for 28. Now Sid's sort of on his back foot, and he's hoping to draw one of the last S's or the blank for snubs if he doesn't already have the last S. And unfortunately, again, my drawing continues to be superb, and I play Epinaos. Seemed better than, well, maybe Agonies is better actually. Um, but I wanted to put out the worst possible floater, and it's possible that the P is worse than the G in this spot, and the E is better than the A. So actually, let's give it a little sim again. This position, I think Quack will have a little bit of understanding of. Opponent next turn, bingo chances after Epinaus looks better than Agonies, which is not what I want, but we'll let it sim for a little bit longer. Anyways, this was just a very nice sequence. Fronts, okay, was all right, but then Java keeping the S seemed really strong, and then Wed keeping D S blank, and then Veld keeping S blank, and whatever the other letter was probably a vowel actually. Come to think of it, it just felt incredible, and I mean it was undeserved because of Grimace, but yeah, I was in extremely good shape here, but I should have played Agonies, I think. Um, Agonies allows fewer bingos. Um the only saving grace for my play of Epinaus is it's probably a bit easier to overlap on the right side. So because this board is so closed already, if Sid doesn't make a play opening a part of the board next turn, I can just make an overlapping play on the G column and just close everything down. If I draw the right letters, of course. So Epinaus probably does put a little bit more pressure, even though Sid's likelier to bingo immediately after it. The problem with Agonies is I need an I or an O to overlap, which honestly is probably not that difficult. But yeah, it's possible that Epinaus is a little bit worse. Um, and Sid, unfortunately, again, like just drawing like seems like horrible stuff from my perspective, has to play you now. Both U's. Just not being able to open the board there is really, really bad. Um, and unfortunately, I can't do anything either. This isn't as easy as I thought it would be, but I draw 7 consonants, and I can't really make any plays here. I could play something like Tad, which I actually considered, which kind of prevents some plays being made over here to open the board. But I think exchanging put me in better shape because if I play Tad and Sid bingos, I might actually be in trouble. So if I exchange and Sid bingos, at least my letters will be more workable. But it's possible that making a play here is okay. Like playing something like Tad just to prevent all these potential setup plays. But Sid will probably catch on that I have lots of constants and make some other setup play that I can't deal with if he can. So again, it's the psychological thing of not giving Sid any information to work with, um, which would help him in his decision making process. So Sid plays id here, and I noticed that of course that's creating an S hook. That's what he wants to do. He's reopened the end column and is trying to draw the last S if he doesn't already have it. And unfortunately here again, I don't have um, my complete rack, and I make an incredibly bad mistake. And I want to show you guys a game that I played just a few months ago. Where is it? Yeah. Just a few months ago, I had a word that I wanted to play that I thought was valid, but I wasn't 100% sure of it until I just kept thinking about it. And I was pretty nervous, but I had this position against Jackson Smiley. And you don't actually see my letters there, but I play. Here, I could go back this way. ADDHLRT. So I played the word LIDAR, which is a very rare 5-letter word. Um, but luckily I remembered it and knew that I couldn't be making it, pretty much couldn't be making it up, and played it. So I was pretty happy with that when it happened because it's just a 5-letter word that almost never comes up. Laird is Laird and Drail anagrams are just so much more likely. Um, so that was a game I played a few months ago. And then here I was like, all right, I have the same 5 again that I played against whoever it was. I couldn't remember who it was, but it was Jackson. And I play Nidar, and Sid instantly challenged it off the board. And I'm just like, oh my God, did I just like totally blow this game? Is this for real? I can't believe I just did this. It's such a terrible position to phony in because Sid could just bingo now and potentially just win the game now. Go up by 20 points and get a couple plays that keep him ahead. But luckily for me, um, I could also, I think, tell during the game that Sid was like not super happy with the way he was drawing. And he played Yes, so I wasn't actually as um, fearful as I thought as I might be um, if Sid hadn't been like emoting a little bit during the game. So yeah, he plays Yez. This sets up an O hook, but mostly doesn't do much. It just scores. And now it's just like, okay, come on. What was I trying to do? Dinar. That's the word, not Nidar. So I confidently, after confidently playing a phony, I confidently play a valid word. And I actually think in this position, if I remember correctly, I did have the last S. So I actually wasn't as worried as I could have been. Yeah, now that I think about it, I had the last S um, in this spot, so I was feeling really confident that Sid couldn't do much. He would have to bingo through any of these letters, which is why I chose to block in this area, to block everything. But yeah, I played Dinar, and finally um, I closed the board. Oops. Sid plays Trigo, reopening, scoring really well. And he's only down 33. I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. I barely sneezed there, but I managed to click my mic off. Anyways, Sid plays Trigo, and all I have to do, whoops, all I have to do here is continue to block his openings because I know I have the last S for XIS, so I don't have to worry about that. All I have to worry about is what he's opening and crazy 9-letter words that he might have, like re-addition. But a lot of those words, if he plays those nines, I can still win with a nice end game and play to the triple. Because after this, I'm up by 51. Something like re-addition scores over 60s, a Sid will be up like 12 points or so. And he would need to have drawn a 4-letter outplay to have a chance of winning. So it seems still pretty likely that I was going to win the game, or very likely. Sid now plays Kif, and here I play. Hold on, what did I play here? I made a fishing play. What did he have? ADEHNRTT. No. Okay. What did he actually have? Aehnrttw. Okay. Um, so I had Atonicity. No. Yes. Yes, that's what I had. And I played TI for 4, I think. Yeah, I played TI for 4. Um, Actually, I should ask Quackle what it thinks about that. Yeah, this position is still crushing for me. Where is this? Just want to save this game. But yeah, the position's still crushing because again, I have this S, and of course, if I draw a bingo on the end column, I'm going to win by a lot more than if I don't. I also have the last O for OK. And yeah, I was just sort of wondering if there was um any 9-letter words that Sid could have. I was still slightly nervous, and this is taking way too long. So I just played TI. Um, Seems pretty good, but Sid made a really, really cool play here. This was his rack, and he played ANE for 12. Uh, Seeing that if he drew an O, so if I have this rack, if he draws an O, he actually wins the game or ties the game. I don't remember if he thought it was a tie or a win, but he has throw here for 45 with OK. And if I try to block that, he just plays throwed or worthed. Not throwed. Throwed is not a word. Sorry, he plays worthed and he wins very easily. Of course, there are other blocks that are slightly better than tit, like I think. Is that right? I don't actually remember. I thought there was a yeah, Tanto. So if I play Tanto, he plays worthed and he wins by 7 points. So he made a really cool calculation. Took a really long time, but he saw that if he drew the O, he wasn't losing the game. And he knew I had the S based on the way I was playing, but he didn't know I had the O, but I did. And I played Atnese. He drew the T, and I won 442 to 321. So we got there. We got to the end of the game. It was a very weird game, but interesting. And of course, I was super upset about like almost blowing the game here, even though I was still crushing in the position. Um, Playing this phony, thinking that it was the word that I played like a few months ago, the same word, is really bad. Like my memory just must be really bad. Is what I was thinking at that moment. And yeah, it kind of hurt, but I remembered after playing that I was thinking of lidar and hoped that it was just nerves that made me think it was nidar, but it's nadir and dinar and drain and ranid. So those are the 5-letter words. I think with those 5 letters, and yeah, that was the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, Sid was just struggling the whole time. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think I was like in first place after these 3 games. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I had won each of my games by well over 100 points. And so, yeah, I was at least first, maybe second, and feeling pretty good. So, yeah, catch you guys in the next episode.